I have read this book before I was 30, and now after I'm 30, I'm reading Farid Attar's Conference of the Birds. A Seeker's Journey to God is the subtitle given by its translator, Andrew Harvey. And it's an interesting story that offers the excuses that human beings will make, a variety of excuses. Of course, like any good journey, there are those that don't make it. Wait, I phrased that one wrong. But starts out as a huge crowd. But through the trials of the journey, the beaten up birds wither their numbers down to 30. And so the hood, the hoopy bird, which is symbolic of the one who reaches into the unseen, the mystic that questions them all. And the princess and the dervish, a miser's fate, a handsome king, story of Sheikh San'an is the initial parliament of the birds, and then onto the bound of the waste, onto the city of God, which I guess is Augustus, city of God. Is that the Catholic book of the like? Sultan Mahmud and the orphan lad, a gravedigger's experience, a saint's dream, a king's palace, a father's love, Sheikh Ahmed Guru and Sultan Sanjar, a faithful infidel and a deceitful crusader. Infidel is probably the wrong way to translate kuffar, but I guess in some cases it's okay, but usually the Christians have used that term in a way that would not be appropriate to the Islamic context. The magic cup of Joseph, magic not referring to seher, of course. The advice of Satan, Sultan Mahmud and Ayaz, and part 3 through the 7 valleys. Some people say, the 7 chakras, I guess you could say that. The Valley of the Quest, Majnun's search for Layla. Majnun, of course, means, you know what Majnun means, don't you? Majnun means crazy. Layla means night. So, a lot of puns about crazy person in the night, I guess. Mahmud and the Rag Picker, the Valley of Love, a love-sick nobleman, Majnun's stratagem, the Valley of Knowledge, the Man of Stone, the beloved who found her lover in the arms of Morpheus, a lovesick sentinel, Sultan Mahmud and the Fanatic, the Valley of Detachment, an analogy from astrology, the Fly in the Beehive, not, making guesses at the unseen and saying that this happened because of this star in this place and this planet in this place. And, that's not the sort of astrology that Islam would allow. Using it as a storytelling device, yeah, that's nothing wrong with that. And with limits, of course. The Fly in the Beehive, the Valley of Unity, advice given to the Sheikh by a woman, the Valley of Bewilderment and Stupefaction, a mother's grief, the Lost City, the Valley of Poverty and Annihilation, Nasser Uddin Tusi's advice to his disciple. Wasn't that a great Shia cleric? The assemblage of butterflies in search of the candle. Rumi specifically mentions, the moth, and the moth makes a lot more sense than butterflies in the story. But part 4 is the reception at the royal court, and there's a brief memoir of the poet Fariduddin Attar to close the book, and some notes. So, Fariduddin Attar, of course, Sanan and was before him, and he's said to be the most prolific Sufi poet of the pre-modern era. Perhaps there's somebody else as prolific as him, but you can read this book and reread this book to see where you are and to test you in terms of your mystical quest. And of course, when you're not looking at languages of the great, R.P. Masani. He's the translator, I guess. Okay. So it comes to be that people know that there's a quest to make. And some people, the basis of the most based lust will take them away. Other people will be, they'll be worried about the future and lose what they have in that case. Other people will be lost in terms of celebrity. Other people will be led away by people of other faiths. I guess there's a lot of things to say, but let's see. There's a list here where we can compare to the tarot. Some people would rather just, read the Quran and find a greater supremacy of language, and they'll find also a greater variety of things being addressed. But sometimes it's good to look at what can be said to be commentaries, and we realize that what we do to ourselves. We realize that there's tests in front of us that we just completely miss. Some are misled by, our dreams are from our psychology mainly. There's the dreams of devils, and there's the dreams sanctioned by God specifically, but let's not overstep our claims of such. No matter what we establish in this world, we're going to die. And got to remember that one. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say something for each one, but we can use, we can set up a drama to lay forth our teachings. I've done some of that in my I've done some of that in my what's it called? In my seasonal list. I've done some in other stuff too. A faithful, again, a label. We got to get past labels. We got to be willing to give up all. We got to be really. We got to realize when we don't have to sacrifice things. We got to realize that some joys and such are not worth their cost. We got to realize, okay, so here we have a list here. And the list, we can say the Valley of the Quest is the Fool card in the tarot. The Second of Love is the Brother or Lover's card. The Third of Knowledge, the Hermit card, of course, right? The Fourth, Independence and Detachment. The Devil card. The Fifth being of Unity. And that would be the Art or the Temperance card. The Independence and Detachment. How else might we divide that? Independence, the Chariot. Detachment, the Wheel of Fortune, perhaps. The Sixth of Bewilderment and Stupefaction. Now we can say the Moon card, but we also can divide that into the Tower card and okay. The Tower card being and the Star card, I guess. And the seventh of Poverty and Annihilation. So you really have both of those in the World or the Universe card, don't we? And so some people much earlier and more than, you can deny your signs of agings. You can kind of dismiss them until they've happened for years. And that's the importance of being 30, right? The Simurge. So they encounter the Simurge. They realize that to know their Lord, they need to know themselves. And I guess I didn't bullet point it for you, but how many birds to start with? Nightingales, ducks. I just want to know how many birds. Comment in question. Andrew Harvey's obviously done a lot of work to help us understand other people's understandings, and a lot of the story is lost and such. Hudhud, Belkis, the Parliament. On hearing of the Simurge. So I don't know how many birds. Doesn't matter. A lot of birds. But that's humanity. If we think of we pass through the stage of creed. How many of us fail in terms of what sort of creed we're going to have? Some people are like, oh, if they pronounce it a little wrong, or if they get it just a little wrong, it's like, but if your judgment is that just a slight error in this thing is going to send people to hell, how do you think you're going to be judged? And then prayer. We can work on it our whole lives and perhaps repent of our failures and such. Of course, as we've pointed out in the previous book, we should try to live a life that doesn't need repentance. You throw in occasional, face me and all that stuff, not just occasional or regular, but our goal is to live deservingly without guilt, shame, and the unnecessary fears. So through our prayers, we sort of ritually enact what we should maintain, what we should do, and we remind ourselves, and we try to insert a sort of devotion and inner side to things, because we shouldn't be too distracted by appearances. So then we move on to charity. We realize what we need, and of what we don't per se need, that extra, is there an obligation upon others for the sake of others from that? A yearly cut from our savings, a yearly division of food given to the poor, a yearly division of an animal for those who can further afford. Perhaps it's up to you to judge what to believe and what not to believe, and what to do about it, how to interpret that. And on the fasting, in the Bible, we have the 9th month of fasting. So every year we're tried once or twice in different ways, right? So a month of not abusing oneself by fasting, but experiencing the fasting and learning to control yourself in terms of what you eat and drink, which in my country is really, you can narrow down the top 3 causes of death to that. You have basically food, the people with the intoxicants that they drink and the ones that they smoke and use otherwise. Those are really all the top 3 causes of death can be narrowed down to those 3 in my country. So being able to control yourself, saying, I have needs of food, drink, and, if one has a spouse, when the sun sets, one's allowed to partake in that too. And you can do voluntary things like going over the scriptures at night completely through the month. That's a noble goal in the biblical sense. That was required, but nowadays it's not, even with a smaller text. There's pilgrimage and marriage, of course, being the greater things. And there are other stages. And as we move on, people drop off. The striving, whether that's war or not, some people will drop off. When it comes to being in charge, some people will drop off. When it comes to full on have the mystical experience that, like the knees, of the pressure of the knees, the pulling apart in the center of the chest, it's pulling apart in every direction, the dark energy, the dark, passing by the dark matter experience. Of course, you don't have to have these in order. And then there's various other mystical experiences, and you go approaching knowledge. Try to have the right beliefs. That builds upon, you get faith, and then you end up with knowledge. And then finally, eventually you die. But as long as you're alive, there's still more and more to do, and you try to drop off the excuses of your life and how to do that. And I'm trying to express artistically and as a scholar in other ways, and just through my deeds, which I'm not going to bore my channel with, oh, here's the good deeds I did. And well, it's not just bore. I'll encourage what I encourage and try to accomplish what I try to accomplish and set forth these things as a reminder. So some translation, some version of The Conference of the Birds by Farid Attar. If you can hear it in the original and with a translation, that would be really good too. So you might want to consider that too. So I guess since this is a Sufi book, I can say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May the peace and mercy of the God in the singular and definitive be upon you. Oh yeah, and his